go ahead and promote the next speaker, Lindsay, to co-host here. Let's see. Here we go. Lindsay, there you are.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Doing well, doing really well. Yeah,
Wow,
the
the
times
seventh event.
seventh event. It's crazy how fast it's gone by, but it's amazing to be here. And we got some new faces, we got some old faces, we got a whole group of people. So we really appreciate it.
Am I one of the old faces?
No.
It's okay. It's an honor, right?
No.
You know, as my parents say, what's the alternative? So we're here, we're alive.
No, I
And
did
I,
not
I
mean.
echo the same thing Jill just said. I love Jill's new website, Choose Tiny. Very
Yep.
cool. I love it. It's kind of like go tiny.
Yep,
Keep
it's like go
keep it
tiny, but I did not
simple.
mean old faces in that sense. I meant been around and with us for a long time.
I love it. I love it. It's been let's see, 6 years, 7 years. What is 2017, 2024 minus that? That's when Eric and I, my husband, decided to go tiny. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Lindsay, the tiny home lady. I'm also formed Build More Houses Now. Thank you. And so excited to be here. New format, still the Zoom world. Way to reach all the people out there. Has anyone been in one of my presentations before? Say why in the chat. Love to see who's here because then your name will come up, and that way I'm not just talking to like in my room by myself to a camera. No. Awesome to see. We got 41 people here in the house. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about something that I've talked about before because I usually take on the challenge of talking about building standards and all the fun things. And we've got so many people here, some great builders going to be talking about building and design. I don't need to talk about that because I'm not a builder, but I will share with you my story. Our tiny home right behind me, we had the vision to go tiny. We were living in Marin County. It was very expensive. Everything was $1 million. And my husband and I decided, you know what? Let's go get a tiny home, travel around the country, we'll downsize our stuff. And that's exactly what we did. However, in the middle of our build, our builder went out of business. And it was quite upset. But we went from fully custom build tiny home to surprise DIY. And that was a bit of a shock. We even had to replace axles and tires because the builder did it wrong. So there's a whole series of problems and things that happened, but we fixed them. And as of this year, we've actually sold our tiny home. We went through many iterations of our tiny home. Now we're moving in more of the modular world where something's built in the factory and arrives and is placed on foundation. The tiny home and the movable tiny home totally fit our lifestyle at the time that we did it. And we're actually going to be building our second home, which is going to be most likely placed in a project in Daly City that I'm just working on. So it's not really ready for prime time, but it's got unobstructed views of the ocean and it's more of the short-term rental opportunity. And it really gives us a chance because we've got family property in Ukiah, Mendocino County, down to Palo Alto. And I like to say we are multi-generational housing on the move. For anyone that has parents that are aging in place and we're in our 50s and our parents are in their 80s, we're needing to stick around more home turf like the Bay Area. But I've made it work for me by selling both the movable homes as well as modular homes, just to kind of give you an idea of my virtual background. This is pretty much the world that I live in now. Are you wanting to move it or are you wanting to keep it permanent? I'd love to know here, who here is for the movable? You know you want to move it. Put M or move in the comment. Who here wants a permanent? You know you want to have it built in a factory, put P in the comments. All right, MNP, good. Because what I've found is a lot more people wanting to do both. And today I'm going to talk about this in the 3 pillars to go tiny. So let me share my screen. Here we go. Cool. I'm liking the P's and the M's. It's really good to know who's undecided. Put a question mark in the comment because that is also equally important to kind of figure out things. Okay, here we go. So I started this whole 3 pillars to Go Tiny when I wanted to create a framework for my Go Tiny Academy. to really center around and focus. And so that's what's really come together. In fact, the word fund just became a new word. It used to be financing, but the reality is not everybody needs financing. But if you do need financing, put F in the comments, because I'd like to know who here is needing that, because that's also important for many people. Awesome. I do see that. Great. So here we go, diving right in. Before we do, big thank you, Jay Schaefer, big shout out. I know he's one of the keynote speakers at the global conference. Super excited. Make sure you catch his presentation. Thank you to Zach and Jason for continuing to do what you do, because then we would just be in our own little Zoom rooms by ourselves. And I want to put a big shout out to the Tiny Home Industry Association, because they're on the screen. Mendocino County, I think, unless something passed in the last 2 or 3 weeks, just was the last county to get passed, and that's my home turf. I worked with the elected official as well as the planner, the director of planning for Mendocino County. And what's super cool, they're legal as a primary residence. I said primary, and an accessory dwelling unit. So you can have 2 movable tiny homes on land. Let me say that again, 2. You can have 2 homes on land. The only other areas that are that aggressive are City of Oakland, Placer County, and Santa Cruz County, and maybe Nick, if there's anyone else I forgot. Most of the ones that are legalized in the state of California are as an accessory to a primary home. So for many people, like, I want to buy a land and put a home on it, that's a primary. If you're going to buy a home that's already on foundation and put it movable, then you need to find the locations like City of Fresno, City of LA, San Diego. So those are just a little bit of things, but I just had to shout out here because it was 2 years in the making of this opportunity. So I'm super excited. Let me check the chat. Anyone else excited? Put yes. All right, someone's in Santa Cruz. You can have more on multifamily. Awesome. Thank you, Nick, for cruising along. Awesome. Yes, we did it. And that was absolutely, I want to say Thea, but it's also Dan Fitzpatrick, Nick Mosley, very much in the early days to get Fresno passed. We had to like start out with, what is a movable tiny home? Residential siding, square windows, dual pane windows, no mechanical equipment on the roof. And what's really cool, what Mendocino County did, they actually reduced some of the more confusing language, like interlocking metal. They took away a concrete pad and made it an all-weather pad. So they just did some things that I was able to watch and be present for. So if anyone here is interested in being an advocate in your own area, put A in the comment, and we need you, right? We need more options. That's really what these ordinances provide, is homeowners that live in the area, whatever it may be, county or city, getting more options to do what they need to do. So awesome. Advocacy is, it takes effort. It's an unpaid job, but once it's done, right? I now can say I was very much a part of that. And guess what I'm also going to be doing? Offering permit services in Mendocino County. Because guess what? I know everybody. And I know the people that actually wrote the ordinance and the pamphlet, and I'm helping them. And it's a two-way communication. So it's awesome to become an advocate, and there's an actual career path for you afterwards, because what's on the other side is education and permitting, because you're going to have to hook up to water, sewer, and electric, just FYI. Solano County, I do not have experience in that one. And I don't think Solano has actually gotten approved. Okay, so today we're going to discuss, because 30 minutes is going to go by so fast, 3 pillars, 4 types of tiny homes. I have a Go Tiny Academy offer that's going to be awesome, and maybe we'll have tiny home hot seat at the end. So jumping in. There it is, land, build, fun. Let's dive into the building standard. I am not here to tell you how to build because there are so many other people that are part of, we got Nick, we had Ben Garrett, we have Jay Schaefer, we got Zach, we got all the people that can talk about how to build. I'm really talking about the building standard as it relates to the land, okay? Because, here we go, 4 types of tiny homes. And building standard is everything to do with how the home is built, right? This upward structure. You know, it might be just 1 story and a movable, and it might be multiple stories, but that is how the home is built or building is built. The zoning land part is what is allowed or not allowed on the land. So we got the building and the land. Guess what? These two have to talk to each other. Unless you want to go under the radar. I am not here to tell you can or cannot do something. How many of you want to go under the radar? Just do UTR in the comments. Not UTI, but UTR. Don't want that one. Under the radar. There's a lot of people that do it. I did it for multiple years and it was amazing, right? By necessity. But you always run into the situation that what if the neighbor gets wind, or maybe your current neighbor is great and then the neighbor changes. So these are all things that if you're plopping a bunch of money somewhere, even buying land, doing things under the radar has not usually been the thing that most people choose, right? We really kind of go away from that. He suggested going under the radar. Okay, cool. Hey, that happens. Again, it is up for you to know what level risk that you want to play with based on the property, based on the region, you name it. Now, in some parts of the country, there are no requirements, okay? There's a lot more grace for what kind of building standard, but we're gonna go forward with thinking that we're all gonna get permits, okay? That will help frame this conversation. For those of you that are in the under the radar, you might like tune out, go to the bathroom, whatever this part, because this will not apply to you. But for those people that want to get a permit with your local city or county, this is going to have an impact. So tiny home is a marketing term. We've been using it a lot. Tiny home, tiny home. Could a tiny home be a van? Could a tiny home be a school bus? Could a tiny home be a tent? Yes. But by and large, we're using it as a marketing term. Everything I'm about to talk about next is an actual building standard. So if I picked up the phone, hi, I'd like a tiny home permit, please. It might be a movable tiny home. It might be a tiny home on wheels, but we have largely not ever offered an ordinance that just says tiny home, right? And there's always going to be a building standard that's connected to it. So let's dive into that. Every type of building standard you're about to see is built in a factory, arrives on wheels. Whether it comes off the wheels or stays on the wheels is another story. And by the way, yes, movable tiny homes, wheels can be removed, but that does not change the standard for which it was built to. That's the most important thing because I get that question all the time. You can just take off the wheels. You can unweld the wheels. I had to unweld the wheels because our builder did it wrong. Okay, so number one, or really not one, zero, movable tiny home. The reason why it's zero, it's not a standard yet. We just don't have it yet. There's a task force that's working on this, and do stay tuned. Sign up for the Tiny Home Industry Association because that is the organization that is connecting with the International Code Council, Modular Institute, a bunch of work. Actually, Nick Mosley knows a lot about the Offsite Modular Construction Committee. He was a part of it. A lot of this has been a springboard. All the ordinances that have happened, the work that Nick did with the Offsite Modular Construction crew, and now we're working with the International Code Council, the ones that actually build the code that all of our residential buildings are built to across the state, across the US, except for the state of Wisconsin, because they have their own. So, number one, recreational vehicle, NFPA 1192. A lot of tiny homes are built within this realm because it has more to do with this one and the next one. These two are both RV, okay? Let me float back and forth. NFPA, think 8.5 wide, no bigger than 320 square feet. If you go 10 wide, if you go, bigger than 13.6, if you go longer than I think the 30 feet, you're getting into more of the RV park model built to the ANSI A 119.5. And what's really great about both of these is there's a stamp. This is usually what you're going to see affixed to a trailer, is done by the RV Industry Association. But again, they're not the standard. It's called the NFPA 1192 is the actual building standard, and the ANSI A 119.5. But these organizations are there to put their stamp of approval saying, yes, this has been approved. In fact, Nick Mosley, I could see him in the chat earlier. He is using Pacific West to certify his builds of his tiny homes. So it's super important to make sure that someone's certifying, because the ordinances that all get passed are requiring that any tiny home that gets put as a primary, as an ADU, or in a cluster, will be built to one of these two standards. Okay, so these are really what we're borrowing for now. Things are going to change. You know, the task force that's working on things diligently is going to be making that, but up to 400 square feet. And the reason why this line is underlined temporary living is because that's what makes most people, if they haven't, or I should say planning committees and the permit department, you name it, kind of cray cray, is when we walk up and say, hey, I got this tiny home, it's on wheels, and there's no ordinance available for you to place that in a backyard or on property or anything like that, because both of these are built for temporary living. Okay. Onward, number 3, International Residential Code, also known as IRC, modular, prefab, factory built. Not to confuse us, there's so many names. What it all means to is that it's built to a state building code and it's made for permanent living. So all my P's earlier, this might be for you. It depends on where you're at in the country. I'm featuring Prefab Innovations because I am a rep for them up here in Mendocino County to San Jose. And we just did an event. This actual picture here was at TiNY Fest. I don't know who was at TiNY Fest in San Jose. Let us know. Say why in the comments. It was a great event. Lots of people were there and we were busy. And a lot of people with accessory dwelling unit dream goggles on. Then we go out and do site assessments and make sure what's going to work, how it's going to be accessible, all of that. So I've really shifted my gears to more of the modular because of most of the people that I kept talking to. They want to appreciate their property value. You can do that with a real property. If you're buying a movable tiny home, I have yet to know, unless someone wants to correct me, it is personal property. We'll talk a little about that in the financing. So you have to really kind of look at, there's pros and cons to both. If you're going to put a movable tiny home on your property, it's a personal property, you don't have to pay property taxes. If you're going to put something built to a state code, you're going to pay property taxes, but you also get to appreciate the property value. So you've got to weigh all the options. My best question that I have for people, are you going to move it? Did you have to crane it in your backyard? Now, I know a lot of movable tiny homes get craned in backyards, but oftentimes the people I work with, they want to crane something in and leave it and appreciate the property value. So these are some things that are figuring out. Taxes, stuck on what taxes we can put in their coffers. They just need to figure that out. Yeah, the taxings. One thing I will share of someone else that told me this is that, let's say you're in a very expensive area, let's call it Silicon Valley, very expensive. You know, you put a building on property, it immediately appreciates in value just because of the location. The property taxes are based on the construction costs, not the valuation of your property. So I've heard. If someone knows that differently, it is a split. Okay, good to know. So, but for some people, they just want something maybe larger. They want a 500 square foot. I'm doing a Santa Cruz property. They want a tiny home. They want an 800 square foot home. Well, in comparison to the 3,000 square foot homes, an 800 square foot home is tiny. So let's not get all hung up on square footage, because my buddy Jay Schaefer came out with the 200 square footers. How many of you in the chat, let me know what square foot you know you want. Put a question mark if you don't know, but like, is it 200, 300, 400? If you go over 400 square feet, you are moving into the IRC category. There you go, 5 to 600. You're either in the modular or the manufactured, and that's my next one. There you go, $399. Now we're in the both. And then we'll get to land in a moment. So housing urban development, 320 square feet or more, it is a national standard. Think your grandma and grandpa's mobile home. Well, not really. 1976 and earlier was mobile home. 76 and after is called manufactured. And what's really cool is I have this summary here. If anyone wants to take a screenshot of the sort of 4, really 5, with movable tiny homes being 0. Nope, I don't think I grabbed that. Anyway, Nick Mosley here is also HUD certified. So he can actually build you a movable tiny home to either an RV standard or a HUD standard. So some builders are going in the direction of either adding, you can do all of them. Okay, modular, movable. So I love it, the 3 M's, the movable, the modular, and the manufactured. How nice of it to just focus on that, even though I know there's a lot of words here. That can really be a game changer. When you work with a builder that's like, based on what you have as your land, and I'm gonna already say it now and I'll say it again, your land dictates the plan. Your land dictates the plan because the land is the zoning. That is the ultimate thing, unless you're on water, and that's probably also got a rule on top of that too. Okay, so now we're into the funding. I have a couple, just 2 slides on this. Again, real property affixed to land versus personal and movable, NFPA, ANSI, IRC, HUD. Okay, so that's just a good understanding. Personal can be a plane, a boat, all of that. You'll have different organizations to give you money. Right now, we used to have another bank in this area over here, and they have no longer done this work. But we're finding credit unions, Lightstream, Lending Tree, Hearth, even eLoan, all these different things. However, if you want a long loan, 25-year terms, it's a little bit higher than your modular or your manufactured homes. But it's gonna be a better bet because you got 25 years. So even if you're in the like 9%, and that's where I really recommend, get the best credit score you can possibly get. If you know you're going to be going for something, start working on your credit now because every little point counts, right? Especially if you're going for a movable financing. Okay, so the land dictates the plan, as I mentioned. How many of you are looking to buy land and place a home on it? Just say land in the comment. Land, yes, okay. So where you're going to be, and then you also have the land. Great, awesome. You already have the land. Actually, Lisa, would you mind coming out? Because I think we have a moment. Oh, let me share with you one more slide. That's it. So really exciting. I have this $1 Go Tiny Academy relaunch. I'm not sure how to put this. Let's see if I can put it. Yep, there it is. In the chat. $1. People are like, what? I've already been paid by a grant to do all this work. So that's why I can offer it to you. It won't stay $1. We're in this relaunch kind of 7-week Zoom. We've already done 2. You didn't miss much. And we're doing Q&As after each anytime. So really great opportunity. It's never been $1 and it probably won't ever be $1. But it's a great way to really get a little bit more deeper into it. The first week, we just talked about sort of tiny home lifestyle. This last week, we talked very much about what we just chatted about here. But I'd love to, if you don't mind, Lisa, would you be open to at least, I don't know, can we have access to people? I should ask that first. Can they be unmuted or no? I have to make them a panelist. What do I do? Help.
Yeah, I'd have to make them a panelist. What's the attendee's name on there?
Lisa, to everyone. Let's see, Lisa Rogerson. Lisa, are you open to coming? Or no, maybe there's 2 Lisas. There's a Lisa. Who has the land? Lisa Garfield. Okay, Lisa Garfield.
So the Lisa with no last name?
Correct.
Okay, that one right there. Okay.
Yay. This really helps. I've done this a lot. Hi, Lisa. You just have to unmute yourself. Awesome.
Hi,
Hi there.
how are
Okay,
you?
so give me, good. Thank you. So give me a little thumbnail sketch of where are you on planet Earth?
Okay, this particular land is up near Mount Hood, near Portland, about an hour east of Portland.
Okay.
So it's an acre and a half. It's on the Sandy River, and there's a house on it. There's an 1,800 square foot house on it that I use for Airbnb. I love
Okay.
the house, and I can never get in it because it's always rented. So I want to put a little ADU right next in the side yard. So I've talked to the county. I can't put. This makes no sense to me. They won't let me put a wheeled residence there, but I can put a 600 square foot foundation house there.
Based on what, great. Thank you so much. Give her a round of applause. Give like, yay, exclamation marks in the comment because she came out and was able to do this. And I recommend anyone getting an opportunity to do a Q&A with anyone. And I do this all the time, is that really teasing out your project. But let me go back to like, I don't know why they won't let me. The reason why, we're going to go back in time to when we talked about temporary living. It's not for permanent unless your county legalizes like Mendocino did. They went through the process. They got it in front of elected officials. They talked about it endlessly for too long, but they did it and now it's legal. So that's awesome, but that's not what your county has done. So
No,
yeah,
not at the moment. Yeah. And in
exactly. So
actuality, yeah, I'd rather have a square house than a rectangle. So I'm not too upset about it, but I did want the flexibility of being able to take it with me.
gotcha. And you know, the reality is if you buy something somewhere built as a modular home and it arrives on wheels and then it's placed on the foundation, it's attached to the foundation. You could move it down the road at some point, but do know that that thing will now start appreciating property value as you will also be paying property taxes.
Right.
But when you say 600 square feet, that's probably the minimum size they're requiring. Is that right?
That's the maximum size they're requiring.
Maximum. Okay, got it. I was wondering, I'm like, because some places there are some minimums that are high. Okay, so then what size do you want?
600 would be good for me. I live in 1100 now, but I'm just one person. So, and then I've got another house somewhere else at 350. That's a little studio, and that's fine too. So I'm pretty adaptable.
So
So,
what's great is now you're in a situation where do you go get something built on site, built to the Oregon residential code in your case, let's see,
that's
here we
right.
go. Or you could choose possibly manufactured home, right? Like Nick is building these homes, but he does do a 10 wide. So it is still more of a rectangle because it does have to go down the road.
Mhm.
And I think that maxes out at 400 square feet. Is that right, Nick? Or he's doing big
Mhm.
ones. I don't know. Nick, you're here and there. Or you find a modular company in Oregon that does provide that. I will mention, I don't know if Zip Kit Homes sells to Oregon, and I don't really know. Says HUD, we can go bigger. Oh, right. HUD can go much bigger. I'm sorry, 320 square and up. So that would be something to talk with maybe Nick with sales at California TiNY. He had that in the chat. I'll just put it in again. Whoa, what was that?
That
Did
was
I
a
do that?
celebration of life. I don't know what it was.
What? Okay, cool. So those are some opportunities for you specifically, because what do you need next?
Well, all I've done so far is I've got somebody in to talk about how to get electricity from the big house to the little house. I've talked to a guy who will put the road in. I've taken out the trees that I need for the view. I've got a fence bid to separate the properties because they're Airbnbs, so they need to be, anyway. So I've done a lot of that. I'm ready to figure out what kind of house to build. I
Got
didn't
it.
think of a modular, which is a good thing to think about.
So I'm just gonna I mean, I'm on that time and I respect the next person. I'm gonna go within this minute. So in Sweden, 45% of the homes are built modular, prefab. Half the year it's cold. In the United States, 4%. That is why we have this like stigma around this manufactured home. It wasn't built well and all those kind of things were the past. That's like saying you still have the same flip phone for 20 years ago, right? We've evolved, our housing has evolved. So we've got these building standards at our fingertips. It's finding the connection with the builders. I would say doing some Googling, definitely talk with Nick because he's got some opportunities for going HUD and much bigger, not your more of a square. I mean, it's all about delivery, right? They're in Fresno, you're up in Oregon. You also can look around for your local modular builder. I know that Prefab Innovations that I work with is looking to go to Oregon, but we're not doing it yet. So what's
Okay.
your timing? That's another big one for everyone to know. What is your timing? If you're a year out, start talking with builders. Things take a while. I mean, there was a gap in COVID where it took longer, but
Right. Yeah. I'm a year out.
okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, it's perfect timing. So thank you, everyone. I just put in the Go Tiny Academy relaunch, and that's a great place to get going because I don't have any landing pages for the Academy right now as we're in, revamp. Thank you all, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I know we've got a next awesome, who's next?
Thanks, Lindsay. We got TiNY Easy next.
Oh my God, I'm
Hey,
here for that.
Lindsay.
They're who I use. I use TiNY Easy.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your presentation there. I loved how simple you made it understandable. It was just easily digestible with those slides and everything. So really good job with that. Really appreciate it. you guys are looking for consultations or any sort of tiny help, check out the tiny house lady. Yeah, go get in touch with Lindsay. So really appreciate it, Lindsay, and thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, you guys.
Yep.